When you hear animal sacrifice, you probably picture guilt, blood, and desperate attempts to appease an angry God. But most Israelite sacrifices looked more like a barbecue with family and friends. Picture this: a family brings a lamb to the sanctuary. The priests receive their portion. Then the family sits down together for a festive meal, celebrating a child's birth or a successful harvest. And this wasn't grim religious duty. Um, it was a party. So what was Israelite sacrifice actually about? And why does the so-called sin offering not work the way most people think? Two principles organize the entire sacrificial system. First, imitatio Dei, Latin for imitation of God. Humans exercise controlled power over life and death, mirroring divine authority. Second, attracting and maintaining God's presence. The sanctuary was God's dwelling place on earth. Sacrifices kept him there, and his presence meant blessing for the community. Think of it like maintaining a relationship with an honored guest. You keep the house clean, you offer hospitality, you celebrate together. The goal wasn't appeasing wrath, the goal was keeping God close. Now let's look at what Israelites actually brought to the sanctuary. Israelite sacrifices fall into two main categories. The first and largest, voluntary, celebratory offerings. These include the whole burnt offering, the grain offering, and the well-being offerings, with their three subtypes: thanksgiving, freewill, and vow offerings. The second category, purification offerings, including the hatta't, right? That's the one commonly mistranslated as sin offering. Notice the imbalance. Most sacrifices were optional acts of joy and gratitude. They functioned like bringing a gift to a host's home. You're maintaining relationship, expressing thanks, celebrating life's blessings. The system was weighted towards celebration, not guilt. The whole burnt offering, or olah, was entirely consumed by fire. Nothing remained. The smoke rose toward heaven, creating what the text calls a pleasing aroma to God. Priests offered this twice daily, morning and evening, maintaining constant connection with the divine. The grain offering, or mincha, was simpler: flour, oil, and incense, a humble gift requiring no animal. Both of these serve the same purpose, attracting and sustaining God's presence. Like incense in a temple or flowers in a home, they made the sacred space welcoming, and they signaled, "We want you here. Stay with us." The well-being offerings, or shelamim, were the festive feasts. Three occasions prompted them. Thanksgiving offerings celebrated specific blessings: recovery from illness, safe travel, a good harvest. You brought an animal, the priests received their portion, and your family ate the rest together at the sanctuary. Free will offerings expressed spontaneous generosity. No specific occasion required. You simply wanted to celebrate God's goodness. Vow offerings fulfilled promises. If you heal my child, I'll bring an offering. The child recovered. Now you're keeping your word. In all three cases, the atmosphere was joy. Families gathered, food was shared, stories were told. This was worship through celebration, not through guilt. The sanctuary wasn't a courtroom, it was more like a family reunion. Now we reach the sacrifice most people think they understand, the hatta't, commonly translated sin offering. The assumption seems obvious. You sin, you feel guilty, you bring a sacrifice, the sacrifice purifies you. But here's the problem: you can't enter the sanctuary if you're ritually impure. Right? The offering is brought after healing, after ablutions, after confession and repentance. The person has already been restored. So what exactly is the sacrifice purifying? The answer changes everything. The hatta't cleanses the sanctuary itself, not the person bringing it. Sin and impurity pollute God's dwelling place from a distance. Here's how it works. When Israelites sin or become impure, that contamination doesn't stay with them alone. It radiates outward, polluting the sanctuary where God dwells. Think of it like smoke filling a room. The source might be far away, but the pollution spreads. Over time, accumulated impurity makes the sanctuary uninhabitable for God. If it gets bad enough, he leaves, and when God leaves, blessing leaves with him. The purification offering scrubs the sanctuary clean. Blood is applied to the altar. On Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, it's sprinkled on God's throne itself. The offering isn't about the sinner's guilt. It's about keeping God's house clean so he'll stay. Why blood? Leviticus 17:11 states, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood." Blood represents life force itself. Now consider the symbolic logic. Impurity and sin associate with death, corpses, disease, moral decay. Holiness associates with life, vitality, wholeness, flourishing. Blood, as concentrated life force, functions like sacred detergent. When applied to the altar, it symbolizes life conquering death, purity, overwhelming contamination. This isn't about punishment or appeasing anger, it's about restoration. Life triumphs over death. The sacred space is renewed. God can continue dwelling among his people. Blood isn't payment for sin. Blood is the cleaning agent that makes continued relationship possible. The system also calibrated to moral intention. Not all sins affected the sanctuary equally. Inadvertent sins, mistakes made without awareness, could be purged through sacrifice. Deliberate sins committed with full knowledge were more serious. But if the sinner repented, confessed, and made restitution, those deliberate sins were converted to inadvertent status, then sacrifice could purge them. Brazen, unrepentant sins were different. Someone who sinned defiantly and refused to acknowledge wrongdoing continued to pollute the sanctuary. No sacrifice could help. This reveals sophisticated moral psychology. The system cared about intention, accountability, and genuine change of heart. Understanding this system transforms how we read biblical texts about sacrifice. The common framework, guilty human appeases angry deity, misses the point entirely. Most sacrifices were celebrations. The purification offering cleans sacred space, not sinful souls. Blood symbolized life conquering death, not payment for crimes. Here's a practical exercise. Next time you encounter the phrase sin offering in a text, pause. Ask, who or what is being cleansed here? The person or the sacred space they've affected? That single question opens up entirely different interpretive possibilities. The mechanics matter for understanding the meaning. The Israelite sacrificial system was less about human guilt and more about maintaining relationship. Families celebrated life's blessings in God's presence through well-being offerings. Priests sustained divine presence through daily burnt offerings. Purification offerings kept God's house clean so he'd continue dwelling among his people. The sanctuary wasn't a place of dread. It was where heaven and earth met, where blessing flowed, where community gathered to feast and give thanks. Sacrifice was the technology that made that meeting possible.